So I'm going to continue talking about graphing sine and cosine with amplitude changes, period changes, phase shifts, and vertical shifts. Now, if you watched the first video and you're like, wow, that's a lot of work, 15 and 16 are actually the easier of the two problems. So if you survived 13 and 14, you're going to do just fine with 15 and 16, I hope. All right. So what do we need to identify? The amplitude, the period, the phase shift, and the vertical shift. That's for every one of these, okay? So if we start with amplitude, by the way, there's a lot of 2's in this problem. So amplitude is 2. Phase shift here, we're going to deal with the 2 that's the coefficient to theta. And remember, we're going to take our original 2 pi period and divide by 2. Which means the period is just pi. Now, the phase shift here, remember, is this whole argument. We've got to figure it out. So I'm going to take the whole thing. So 2 theta minus pi over 2 equals 0. I'm going to zoom in on that. All right, I'm going to multiply everything through by 2, which is the denominator here. So 4 theta minus pi is equal to 0. So 4 theta equals pi, divide both sides by 4, theta equals pi over 4. Pi over 4 is positive, so that's going to tell me that my phase shift is to the right, pi over 4 units. All right, now that's the hard one because you have to pay attention to the period when you are dealing with that. Now, vertical shift, pretty straightforward. It's the plus 2 at the end. So let's see, up 2. Lots of 2's in this problem. Okay, so let me go ahead and grab I'll go with red, I guess. And I'm going to do the amplitude change and the period change. And first thing I'm going to do is mark out my 4 critical values. So it was pi over 2, pi over 4, and then 3 pi over 4. And if you want to, you could mark 0 to remind yourself that's where we're going to start. So now sine starts at 0. At my next critical value, I'm going to go up to positive 2, back to the midline, down to negative 2, or my minimum, back to the midline. Now, every one of these points needs to now deal with the shifts. Now, pi over 4 is 1 space from the y-axis. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that as 1 space. So I need to move 1 space to the right and up 2, which is going to get a little bit weird because some of these x's are already where they need to be. That's okay. 1 space to the right and up 2. So my sine graph has been shifted to right there. Okay. So remember, if you were dealing with 15 and 16 and you had the weird shifts and things like that, this one is not as bad. You do have to make sure that you're paying attention to all the pieces, though. Well, that's with any of the graphs. I'm going to go ahead and slide over to number 16. So let's see what we got here. Amplitude, period, phase shift, and vertical shift. So amplitude is 4. Let's talk period is going to deal with this coefficient to theta, which in this case is 1/4. So 2 pi over 1/4 is equal to 8 pi. And if you look at your x-axis, it kind of makes sense that the graph went very large for this particular problem. Period, we took care of as 8 pi. Phase shift, I'm going to do this whole argument. Okay, take the entire thing. So theta over 4 plus 3 pi over 4 set equal to 0. Solve for theta. So theta plus 3 pi is equal to 0. So theta is equal to negative 3 pi. Now this is the first time we've seen this one. Because theta is equal to a negative 3 pi, this phase shift is actually left 3 pi units. Okay, where you would normally start on the y-axis, you're going to shift to the negative 3 pi, which is the left. So that's where I wanted to put the left 3 pi. Excuse me. Last piece here is my vertical shift. And let's see, that's going to be what, up 1? Up 1. Okay. So let's see if I can do this graph with just my amplitude and period first. So I'm going to mark out my critical values, 8 pi, 4 pi, 2 pi, 6 pi, and a 0. Little X marks the spot here. Cosine starts off center high in this case, so positive 4. 2 pi is at 0. 4 pi would be at negative 4. 6 pi is back to the midline. And 8 pi is at your maximum of 4. However, every single one of these points has to move. Now, the only one we don't know is this left 3 pi. Well, the nice part is it's just 3 units or 3 spaces. So 3 spaces. So every one of these x's is supposed to move to the left. 3 spaces. Now, these first 2, you don't even have space over here to move them, so don't bother. We're going to move these 3 and then continue the curve based off of what we do know. So this one's going to move 1, 2, 3, and then up 1. 1, 2, 3, up 1. So this is now my minimum. My midline here, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, up 1. So there's my new midline. 1, 2, 3, up. 1, 2, 3, up 1. So what I've got here is this is the minimum, this is the maximum, and basically I want to find more of the curve. So what I'm going to do is each one of these critical points is 2 spaces away and 4 spaces vertical from itself. So if this is my maximum point, I can move 2 spaces over and then 4 spaces down, 2 spaces over, let's see, 4 spaces down. And I could continue that if I wanted to, but basically here is my curve. All right, I know these can be kind of painful, difficult, whatever you want to call it, confusing. If you have questions or concerns, please let me know and I will do my best to help you out and figure out what's going on.